IL. What kind of value can he provide to your bullpen in this club?
Yeah, he's a back-end reliever for us, and when he's right, he can get anybody out in the league. We've seen him strike out, a record number of people in a row, so glad to have him back and be able to slot him back in there in the back end of the bullpen, help Jason, Adrian, and Mason close out games.
At what point did you guys feel that you were confident in him and his ability to come back?
Yeah, I think we took the appropriate amount of time to get him right, to make sure he's feeling good, and then we had a couple rehab outings. We just wanted to check the boxes, make sure his velocity was there and the stuff was there, and he checked those boxes right away in those 2 outings, and just feel really comfortable bringing him back at this point.
And then on the other side, David Morgan going down to AAA. What was that conversation like with him, and what went into that decision?
Yeah, Demo's a great pitcher, and he's going to be a big part of our success this year. I think he ran into a little bit of a snafu here lately, not be able to command his fastball as well as he would like. But he'll have a little bit of time in El Paso to get that right, and we should see him back, sometime soon.
Just a day off for Jackson today?
Day off for Jackson. Coming off that trip to Elevation in Colorado and Mexico, trying to, get a day for a lot of these guys that are mostly everyday players and figure out what's best for them and try to partner with them on that. And so today was the day Jackson and I decided it would be a good day for him to take a breather.
What is the plan with Canning? I know he's throwing a bullpen today. Is he still getting another minor league game?
Yeah, potentially another minor league game on Sunday. His rehab is winding down, so we'll have to, slot him in the rotation at some point. But he's doing really well through his bullpen today, and we'll plan the next start accordingly.
Is that Lake Elsinore, or would you throw back up to El Paso?
TBD. We'll figure it out. He's been the last few in El Paso, so it could be any number of places.
What reports did you get on Giolito?
He said he felt great. He's building his pitch count up. He said it feels a little bit like spring training, where he's sharp for some parts of the game and not very sharp for other parts of the game. He's got a few weeks left, before we have to bring him back up. So we're going to use those weeks to our advantage and get him built up the right way, where he feels comfortable coming out here and helping us, succeed and win games.
How about Yuki Matsui?
Yeah, Yuki's same thing. He's down there in AAA. He's had a few outings. We're trying to, get him to where he can pitch 2 innings at a time. I think his rehab is coming to an end here this next week also. So, a few more outings for him, and then we'll see him back.
You in the front office, how much work did you guys do with Matsui and Connie, and how he might translate to playing for the Padres?
When I was in the front office, I didn't have a whole lot to do with any of the international signs. That was AJ and his crew that always go over to Japan. I stayed stateside. I wasn't in too many of those conversations when we're talking about some of the international players that have had success here in the States.
When you look at Jeremiah Estrada's comments about getting in better shape and losing weight, may have been a little detrimental. As a former pitcher, it seems like a real difficult thing to find that sweet spot and maintain it.
Yeah, I think it is. I think there's just as many players that have said I've lost weight and got stronger and felt better on the mound. Then there's other guys that just need that extra mass to accomplish what they want. I was definitely one that needed a little bit more. Not the heavier I weighed, the harder I threw, but when I got to a certain weight, the velocity went to a certain point, and so, it's one of those things that it's trial and error through every offseason. And once you kind of figure out who you are in an offseason and what you need to do to be ready for a season, you kind of try to do that as many times as you can to stay in the big leagues. And I think Jeremiah knows now, what that plan is going forward, and it's a good thing that he could accomplish getting that back here in the last 2-3 weeks.
Just going back to David Morgan, obviously he's a guy that had been here since early last year, and now he's going back down to AAA. I'm sure that's not what he envisioned for his season. How do you, when you're having that conversation, balance, I suppose, maybe the disappointment of going back down alongside, I guess, the idea that if you go down and you do the things you're supposed to do, you'll probably get another opportunity?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the fortunate thing is I've been that person before. I've been the person that's been in the big leagues and then eventually sent down just because you're not being who you are, who you have been. And sometimes you just need a little recalibration to get back to who you are and what you're great at. I think that's all David needs, is just a little bit of a breather. Get back to being the strike thrower that he was when we first called him up last year. I remember, going through the minor leagues and being like, this guy doesn't not throw a strike. We almost need him to throw more balls, to be a little bit more effective. And now it's kind of gone the opposite way, where he's pitching away from contact instead of inviting contact and letting his good stuff play. So he's gonna be just fine. Like, he's got great stuff. He's gonna be a big part of our team this year.
Anything else, guys?